Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for another edition of the Money Pros. I'm Oliver Tutt, certified financial planner practitioner, and I'll be your host for the next half hour as we talk about all the issues related to your money, how to make it, how to keep it, and hopefully how to help it grow. Let me tell you what we have on tap for today's show. First up, we're going to be talking about the cost of raising a child. This is something that we've talked about in the past. It's a government analysis that's done each year. The new statistics are out, and I thought I would pass it along because it's important to understand that as you do your own financial planning. We're also going to be joined by our real estate money pro, none other than Chad Kritzas with Keller Williams Realty. Interesting question. What is our market like right now, and is it getting ready to change? We're going to be talking to Chad about that very topic. And another thing that came up recently, a question for you. Do you feel like your household income has gone up? Well, according to the federal government, it has, and we're going to share some new statistics that they just released, talk about the impact that that could have on the stock market and a number of other things. And then finally, did you ever wonder what the most valuable sports franchise was? Now, what does this have to do with personal finance? Well, unless you're Bob Kraft, it probably doesn't have anything to do with your personal finances. But I was at a Patriots game the other day and started to wonder as we looked around at the facilities and the operation that's going on up in Foxborough, where do the Patriots rank and what are the most valuable sports franchises? So I thought I'd share that at the end of the show. All right, without further ado, let's jump right into it. We're going to be talking about the cost of raising a child. Now, again, this is a topic that's come up before on the Money Pros, and it's important to understand. Certainly, it's something that I focus on. I've mentioned many times on this show that I actually have 4 children myself, and never has there been a greater drain to net worth than having a child. Now, before I get angry letters and phone calls and emails, I wouldn't trade any of them for twice the cost of what it costs to rear them, but it is important to understand exactly how expensive it is, if for no other reason than to make them aware of it, so maybe they're just a little more appreciative when they go to bed at night. So here's the deal with the statistics. The cost of raising a child is actually estimated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, don't ask me how they got involved in the whole process, but they've been doing this since, I believe, 1967. And they do it for a variety of ranges of households because, as you can imagine, depending on the income of your household, a high-income household would probably spend more per child to rear them than somebody that came from a low-income household. So they do it for a variety of different income ranges, both high, middle, and low. We're going to talk about middle-income households, which is really the median income as according to the USDA. And according to the figures for 2013, now I know that sounds dated, but those are the most recent figures that came out from USDA. A child born in 2013, to raise them up until the age of 18, and I'm here to tell you, you're probably going to have responsibility for them a lot longer than that, but the cost to raise them until age 18 is now estimated at $245,340. So not an inconsequential amount of $250,000 to raise a child. So you can imagine a family of 2 or 3, or in my case 4, and in some cases more than that, that cost can be substantial. So one of the interesting things that comes out of this information is not only what the total cost is, but where those costs come from. In other words, what are we spending? What are the most expensive things in terms of ranking various categories? So let me throw up a slide and we'll go through those really quick. So the number one cost to raising a child, 30% of that $245,000 is dedicated to housing. So whether it's rent, mortgage, whatever, 30% of that goes to housing. And that's been pretty consistent over the years as long as the USDA has been doing this. Next up is education and child care at 18%. So that's a substantial chunk of people's cost for children going to education and child care, and college education not being any small part of that, but a lot of other things like activities and sports and stuff like that. And then finally, food at 16%. Another figure that has remained relatively steady. So what are some of the trends? Well, trends suggest that we spend less actually on things like food and clothing as a percentage of our income than we did, say, back in 1970. So that's an interesting indication that inflation hasn't been in those categories what it had been in the past, and our costs are coming down there. But we spend more than double on child care when accounting for inflation since 2009. And we spend a lot more of our income, and I can attest to this, on things like services and education for our children, whether it be tutors or sports teams or activities. Those are costs that are increasingly becoming a massive part of the child care raising budget. So that's a little bit of the current information. All right, up next we're going to be talking to Chad Kritzas from Keller Williams Realty. Is our real estate market getting ready to change? Stay tuned, we'll let you know. Welcome back to the Money Pros, joined now by our real estate pro, Chad Kritzas from Keller Williams Realty. Chad, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Made me a little nervous when we talked about the subject of this interview. You wanted to talk about the potential for our real estate market changing. It's been pretty good.
Really good.
Changing, I don't know if that means better or worse. We'll get into that. But before we talk about what changes you see coming and kind of what defines that and a whole bunch of other things, let's talk a little bit about how it has actually been. So you have some statistics for the summer. Maybe you could share with us what's been going on in Rhode
Absolutely.
Island.
It's been a great market. I mean, the last 6-12 months has been very, very strong. Actual stats from the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, single-family home sales for July over the previous July were up 7.5%, so a pretty substantial number. There has been a 13% decrease in new listings or inventory. So that's, that kind of balances it out. More multiple offer situations, more sales but less inventory, simple supply and demand. Definitely feeling a little more buyer frustration, a lot of multiple offer situations, that kind of situation. Pending sales were only up 0.5%, which is the lowest it's been in a while, but that's probably pretty reflective of the lack of new inventory. And on the other side, condo sales were down 6% and multifamily sales were down 9%. So a little bit of a change there from where they've been historically. But also, we're seeing a lot less distressed sales, the short sale and foreclosures. So that's been a different number as well.
Do you feel like the market has gotten back to where it was in, let's say, 2007, which is a date we always give as sort of financial collapse? I mean, are we back there? Or
Absolutely.
Okay.
I feel like we definitely are. Personally, I mean, sales volume's way up, and just the prices that some of these houses are getting, I mean, multiple offer situations, 10% over asking or 5% over asking. Seen a lot of it lately.
So it's really reminiscent of that 2007 timeframe, and I don't know whether that is indicative of things to come or not, but let's get into that. I think one of the things that I learned in talking with you about this subject is that the concept of inventory is an important one to understand if you're going to talk about real estate. And I think most of us, when we think about inventory, we think about a shop and it's got 1,000 whirligigs in the back room. It's similar with real estate, but it's really not the same. So I'm hoping you can explain to us in the real estate market, what are we talking about when we're talking about inventory?
Great. So inventory basically is if no other houses were listed for sale tomorrow, how many months of inventory do we have on the market? So if you take the average number of sales per month and you have X amount of listings, how many months would it take for those listings to sell?
To work off those listings.
Right, to get rid of the inventory. Just like you had a supermarket. If you had 50 gallons of milk and you sell X amount of gallons a day, how many days would it take to sell the inventory?
So when we're talking about inventory, you could talk about it in terms of number of units, but it sounds like in the real estate game, you're talking more about time. How long would it take to burn off the supply that we have available?
Right.
So having said that, we have a slide, and inventory seems to be indicative of sort of what type of market we're in, and we've heard a lot of these concepts before. So let's run through those. And the first is a buyer's market, and we have up there that it would be greater than 7 months of inventory. So buyer's market greater than 7 months of inventory, what are we talking about here?
So basically, if no new listings came on the market, and how long it would take, we'd have enough inventory to supply our sales for 7 months.
So that means there's a lot available.
A lot available.
And so buyers have a lot of choices, and sellers are at a weakened position, theoretically.
Right. Just simple supply and demand.
Okay. Next one we have is a seller's market. I think most people are familiar with this concept. Now this you would consider to be less than 5 months of inventory. Is this where we've been recently? We
have, and we've been maintaining there for a pretty good time frame now. So it's a question of how long does it stay there, right? Like you said, 2005, 2007, how long does that maintain?
And then finally, and this wasn't something that I'd really considered, but a balanced market would be somewhere between those two figures, 5 to 7 months of inventory. Where do we see that?
Well, and that typically is a very short time frame. So the shift, like a local shift, happens very quickly, right? 2006, 2007, once again, it all seemed to happen very quickly. So the balanced market usually doesn't sit around very long. It's usually the the transfer time between the two markets.
So we could be in a seller's market for a prolonged period of time or a buyer's market for a prolonged period of time, but the balance is sort of that transition period from one to
Right.
another. It's not something that you're going to see sustained for any kind of period.
Right.
So let's talk about local markets then. Given what we've learned about inventory, can you cite local markets that are either based on inventory, and this isn't your own analysis, I mean this is just what we talked about, either a seller's market, a buyer's market, or what we consider a balanced market?
Same thing. So the Rhode Island Association of Realtors published the statistics on the inventory. So I'll give you some examples. So Newport County is low inventory, so it's considered a seller's market. However, Jamestown and Little Compton, Jamestown had 10 months of inventory and Little Compton has 14 and a half months. So those two towns would be considered a buyer's market.
Really?
Yes, which
Okay.
you wouldn't think necessarily.
Because you wouldn't think that they have that many properties available. I think that's kind of part of the
Right.
where you get sidetracked with that, I think, potentially.
But Newport County specifically, a well-priced house in Newport right now is, multiple offers gone usually in days. Now, once again, this is if it's priced correctly, right? If you throw an astronomical price on a house, it's going to sit around. Nobody's really.
So that's a good point. This doesn't speak to what your specific situation is necessarily going to be. It doesn't mean that if you are in a seller's market, you can put an obscene price on a house and really have hope of getting it. I suppose you have more hope of getting it than if it's in a buyer's market.
Buyers are much more educated than ever. I mean, you have all these, the Zillow, the Trulia, the Realtor.coms. You have all these educational sites that show you the previous sales in the neighborhoods, right? And hopefully they have a good agent helping them, not overpay. So if the market does shift again, they're not underwater.
Any examples of a balanced market in Rhode Island?
So the East Bay and the West Bay are pretty much balanced markets
Okay.
when you look at the sales numbers. Bristol and East Greenwich, however, are still sellers markets, low inventory. Warren, Barrington, and then the West Bay communities as well are fairly balanced in the number of inventory numbers versus sale numbers.
So you talked about earlier the idea that a balanced market is typically a transition area. It's not going to stay there. And from earlier figures, it sounds like we've definitely been in a seller's market. So let's get to the meat of this, the possibility that the market is getting ready to change in Rhode Island. Do you see a shift coming?
I believe I do. I mean, I'm not saying it's tomorrow. I'm not saying it's by Christmas. I'm not saying it's in the spring. But,
Sure.
The buyer frustration and dealing with a market like this is where it starts to turn. A buyer starts losing 3 or 4 homes in multiple bids, they're going to get frustrated and say, well, why don't I just stay in my rental for a year till this calms down?
Okay.
So it's a great time for sellers to maximize their profit or their numbers. On the other side of it, buyers as well should still consider buying in today's market, because even if the market goes down 10%, but interest rates go up 1%, you still have the same monthly payment. So, I'm always a firm believer, if you can afford it, it's better to be a homeowner than a tenant paying somebody else's mortgage.
So you're suggesting that the shift may move from a seller's to a buyer's market, and that one of the triggers for that would just be buyer frustration at multiple offer situations, rising prices, things like that.
Interest rates.
Are there any other things that, interest rates, another example, are there any other things that, for example, seasonal factors that would cause that transition?
Locally, we're very seasonal. So last year, really, we had no harsh winter. Right? We had a few snowstorms, but the year before, we had those 2 big blizzards in February. I mean, those basically shut us down, right? Because people aren't going out and looking at houses in the middle of a blizzard. So, 2 years ago, February was awful, where this past year, February was great. So we have a very seasonal market. Another example that I find, and this is an opinion I share with some people, but I find August is historically a very slow month.
Okay.
I sold twice as many homes in December this year, believe it or not, as I did in August. Now, August is, last minute vacations, back to school, all the things that come with the end of the summer. So we tend to find the last couple of weeks of August, first week of September till about Labor Day tend to be slow, believe it or not.
So, two-part question for you. The first part of the question is, given all this, okay, and the potential for a coming shift, and nobody's saying it's cataclysmic, and some of it's just seasonal and to be expected, what can buyers and sellers do to prepare for that possibility?
Well, we just said, active new listings are down 13%. So for sellers, they're catching the beginning of a fall market. They can probably capitalize on higher sale prices at this point, with the inventory being as low as it is, interest rates being low, and so many buyers out there looking. So for sellers, this is a great time. It will stay fairly busy. I mean, some of the biggest sales I've done have been between Thanksgiving and Christmas, believe it or not. You know, the higher end where they're going to be renovated and for the spring. So sellers really, I mean, the fall market is, I would say, just as good as April and May. It's a very strong time of the year.
What about for buyers?
Buyers, same thing. I mean, you got to be educated. You got to know what's coming on the market. You know, as soon as it hits, you got to be ready to go. You have to be pre-approved in today's world. You know, another thing is if you have a house to sell to buy, you have to have that house up and running.
That was going to be part two of my question.
Oh,
what do you say to somebody that is in that situation? I imagine it's a pretty frequent one where in order to buy, they've got to sell, so they're looking at a package deal in some form or fashion. What's your advice to them?
Well, it's a very common thing in our world, right? You're upsizing, you're selling your first home, you're buying your next one, you're moving up in the world. You got to be prepared. You got to have the house either ready to go on the market or have it on the market. Because if you go in a multiple offer situation, you're against somebody that doesn't have a house to sell, unless it's a substantially higher sale price, why would a seller take that offer? Right? And that's how you have to look at it. So, you know, it can't be, well, my house is going to go on the market in a month. Well, that means the seller is sitting around for a month waiting for you just to get your home marketed. And then if you have, say, 60 days market time, you know, then they just sat around for 90 days.
So time is of the essence, and you got to make the move now. All right, we're going to have to make that the last word. Thanks as always,
Awesome,
Chad. Excellent information. All right, up next, we're going to be talking about the question of whether or not you think your household income went up, because the federal government certainly does. Stay with us, there's more to come. Welcome back to the Money Pro. So interesting question. We even threw this on our Facebook page, and I know I've talked to a lot of clients about this question. Conceptually or realistically, do you feel like your household income has gone up? One of the big frustrations with the economic recovery, and I'll put recovery here in quotes, over the past several years since 2008, has been with what it's meant for average Americans and their household incomes. Now, certainly we've seen things like we just talked about the real estate market. We've seen that come back. We talk about the stock market all the time. We've certainly seen that come back and reach new highs. But a more fundamental measure of how we're doing as a society is whether our household incomes are increasing. And of course, the federal government tracks these numbers, and they've been doing it for about 4 decades now. So we have a good historical look at what's going on with household income. So let me start off by throwing up a graph, and we can actually take a look at the trend. So this actually goes back to pre-1970, and you can see, you know, there's some ups and downs there, but there's a steady rise. And then the area I've circled at the end of the graph essentially covers the time frame from 2007 to 2015. And you'll notice that there's a pretty substantial dip there as household incomes plummeted after the Great Recession. But you can see a little bit of recovery. And the other thing, while I still have this graph up, that I want to point out is look at the current day. That's at the very end. And is that the highest it's ever been? And the answer is no, actually. You have to go back to 1999 to see when household incomes in the United States were the highest. So having said that, what do I mean by the federal government thinks your household income has gone up? So according to their study, 2015 actually saw a substantial gain. It was the first gain since 2007 and the largest gain since the Census Bureau has been tracking this information prior to 1970. It is attributed primarily to sustained job growth. So as you can imagine, as the employment rate has gone down, people have returned to full employment, and they've returned to jobs that are more likely suited to their education and background rather than just whatever they can get at the time. We've seen household incomes slowly rise. It has not closed the gap left since the last recession. So as I alluded to as you were looking at that chart earlier, the 2015 number, which is the number we're talking about here, is not as high as where we were at for household incomes in 2007. It's also not as high as where we were in 1999. So this is a real concern because there are a lot of economic indicators out there, right? The stock market is an example, but not every American benefits from a rise in the stock market, and even those that do through investments in 401ks, it doesn't necessarily translate into an improvement in their standard of living. And of course, consumer consumption is a major indicator of a healthy economy. We see increases in real estate prices, but we know that real estate is susceptible to bubbles, so that's also a concern. So this is considered a much more fundamental metric. And it's encouraging to see that the number's gone up, because 2015 was really the first jump that we've enjoyed, the first significant jump we've enjoyed since the Great Recession in 2008. The problem is, and this is exactly the question I get to, do you feel like your income has gone up? And if people don't feel like their income has gone up, they're not going to spend, and the economy is not going to grow the way it needs to. And we've certainly seen that in our GDP not growing the way we want it to, and that'll become a continuing theme as we continue through election season. All right, that's it on that little topic. Up next, what's the most valuable sports franchises out there, and are our Patriots on the list? Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Money Pros. All right, what are the most valuable sports franchises? Let's go to the slide. And here we have number 3, and this is according to Forbes, by the way, 2016 numbers. Number 3 most valuable sports franchise, Barcelona soccer team, $3.55 billion. Number 2, another soccer team. What's up with this? Real Madrid, $3.65 billion. And finally, number 1 most valuable sports team, the dreaded Dallas Cowboys. So, the Patriots didn't make the top 3 of most valuable sports franchises, but I can tell you they came in at number 6 with a value of $3.2 billion. Yankees baseball franchise was number 4 with a value of $3.4 billion. So we're talking about some substantial value in local sports franchises. The other interesting thing, and this will come as no surprise to anybody that's been up to Foxborough, or to any other football stadium or watches it religiously on Sunday, Thursday, Monday, all the other nights of the week that it'll inevitably come to us. NFL football teams comprise 27 of the 50 most valuable sports franchises in the world. So despite the fact that soccer is 2 of the top 3, American football, as they say, is actually 27 of the top 50. So pretty impressive. Hey, do you have a question for one of our Money Pros? Send us an email. You can shoot us an email at moneypros@foxprovidence.com. You can also look for us on Facebook. We've got nearly 4,000 people liking us on Facebook, and we love to get questions, so feel free to ask. I answer all my questions, and I might even do it on the air. Thanks for watching. That's it for today's edition of the Money Pros. We'll see you again next week. Take care. On the next Money Pros, it's no secret that raising kids is expensive, but just how expensive? The Fed's new numbers are out, and we'll certainly take a look. We'll be joined by our real estate Money Pro, Chad Kritzas with Keller Williams Realty. He'll tell us whether our local real estate market is getting ready to shift. And finally, has your household income gone up? Well, the federal government thinks it has. Don't miss the next Money Pros this Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on Fox Providence, or watch online at foxprovidence.com.